Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tech Tuesday evening, where we dive a little bit deeper into nutrition subjects. And I've covered a whole range of different subjects over the years. But we started last week talking about magnesium and how essential this little mineral actually is. It's quite a remarkable little mineral. So if you want to learn more about the basics, please feel free to go on and check the YouTube recording from last week, because I explained exactly what it is and what the basic functions are, and where it's so helpful in so many different things. We spoke about heart health and digestion and all sorts of things. And now we're going to kick in with the next part. Where's my share screen? Okay. So we are talking about magnesium and why do we need it and what all does it do? Well, we started off last week explaining a little bit about why we need it and what part of what it does. And I'll get into the next part tonight. And the next thing is migraines. I don't know who on here has suffered a migraine before or is prone to suffering migraines. I'm very fortunate in that I can't remember actually ever having had a migraine. My mother, on the other hand, was a chronic migraine sufferer, and it didn't take too much to trigger her. There were certain things that triggered her. And I remember having some really rough times, taking some really heavy painkillers to try and sort out the migraine. And I know my sister Jenny also, she got the same genes, and she tends to have migraines. Certain things trigger her, and if she was on a little bit later, she can possibly explain a little bit more about what triggers her and what she does to help it. And my older sister as well, to a certain extent, but not as bad that I'm aware of. But migraines can be paralyzing. Some people have them for a relatively short period of time. Some people have them for a few days. And they basically have to lie dead still in a very dark room, very quiet, and not move, because migraine is literally paralyzing. And it's a horrible, horrible thing. And migraine is just one of numerous different types of headaches. But, well, magnesium might possibly be one of your answers. So magnesium therapy may help to prevent or relieve headaches. Now, with migraines, I'm told that in most cases, before they hit, you experience this aura, and it's just something that you realize, where sometimes the eyes change, eye strain happens, but you just realize that here comes trouble. Sort of like a hurricane that's coming in. It starts off with a gentle breeze, and the breeze just picks up and picks up before that whole hurricane whacks you. And then the storm passes, you have the eye, and then whacks you from the other direction. And I think migraines do this to a certain extent as well. So if you can prevent it or relieve it, makes a very big difference. Now, how does magnesium do it? Because a magnesium deficiency can affect the neurotransmitters and restrict the blood vessel constriction, which are factors that doctors have linked to migraine. Now, remember, the brain itself doesn't have any pain receptors, so it can't feel any pain. So when you have a headache, it's not your brain that's having a headache. It's around it. It's the pain receptors in the skull and around the brain, but it's not the brain itself. People who experience migraines may have lower levels of magnesium in their blood and body tissues compared with others. Magnesium levels in a person's brain may be low during a migraine, so good idea to up it. because remember that what does magnesium do? It causes a relaxation in the muscle. And often with a migraine, you have this massive spasm in your head where it almost feels as though your skull is being, or your scalp is being pulled off. And that's the whole muscle in this area that is going into complete spasm, triggering and causing that migraine. So if you can get that spasm to relax, it goes a long way to making a difference. A systematic review from 2017 states that magnesium therapy may be useful for preventing migraine. And as with anything, prevention is a whole lot better, less painful, and a whole lot cheaper than cure. The American Migraine Foundation report that people frequently use doses of 400 to 500 milligrams per day for migraine prevention. Now, if you're going high doses, please run that past your doctor first of all, just to make sure that it's not going to clash with anything else and that you're not going to have an overload to your system. Because remember, nature likes balance. Too much of anything is going to overpower something else. So you want to get that balance. The amounts that may have an effect are likely to be high, and people should only use this therapy under the guidance of their doctor. Remember, it's a mineral. Technically, there are upper limits. You've got to take an awful lot to get to those upper limits, but those limits are there. So your doctor, your physician should know you quite well. And once they've examined you and they know where the problems are and where the problems aren't, they need to guide you on the amount of magnesium that you should or shouldn't be taking. The other thing is PMS, premenstrual syndrome, another thing that causes spasm. Magnesium may also play a role in PMS. Small-scale studies, including a 2012 article, suggest that taking magnesium supplements along with vitamin B6 can improve your PMS symptoms. However, a more recent 2019 review reports that the research is mixed and further studies are needed. And I've spoken before about research. Research is ongoing for everything, even medication. So when somebody starts a research program, they've got certain criteria that they need to follow. And generally, they've got to do that over a restricted period of time. And this is often why when they do medication research, they do it with rats who have a relatively short lifespan, because they can mimic then how it's going to work in a human lifespan. Because a rat only lives, or a mouse only lives for a certain amount of time, so they can see how something is going to affect these animals from birth to death. But that happens over a period of probably about 2 years, maybe, sometimes a little bit less. So they've got a pretty good idea of what it's going to do in humans. Now, in humans, you can't have somebody born and take them out in about 2 or 3 years' time. That could lose its sense of humor very quickly. So they've got to do longer term studies, and often it's lifetime studies. So they'll have a group of people, for instance, and they sign them into a program, and they watch what happens over a period of literally their lifetime, from birth to death. Now, obviously, you can't always choose somebody at birth to go through the program for life, but what they do is they check out medical records. So they see a certain group of people. One of the programs that they did was checking out a group of nurses, and they traced their medical history from a young age right the way through to death. And they could see what they were taking, what they weren't taking. They did regular blood tests, and they could work out their research accordingly. And this, unfortunately, is where nutrition comes in with their research, because, as I said last week, research is expensive. Costs a lot of money to do all the tests. If anybody's ever been for an MRI or a simple X-ray, you know how much that costs. If you've had any simple blood tests, you know how much that costs. And in order to do the research, you've got to do numerous of these things. It's blood tests on a regular basis, it's diet reviews, it's x-rays, it's MRIs, it's CT scans. There's all sorts of different things that they do, and they cost money. And your guinea pigs, for want of any better term, are not paying for this. And quite often, in a lot of cases, they actually get paid to be taking part in that trial. So it becomes expensive. And as I said, with medication, you develop a drug, they can get patented, and you can make your money back on the research. Food is a different story. You can't patent food, therefore you can't make your money back on the research. You can patent the process of how food is processed into a supplement form, which is what our company has done with carotenoid complex. It has a patent on it. Not the ingredients, but how it's been formulated makes all the difference. So when we talk about these review reports and the research is ongoing and further studies are needed, basically they've got to track that research subject from a certain age to a greater age, and then deduce from there, taking out a whole lot of different elements and things. And it's a whole big story. And you get these professional researchers, and that is all that they do, is they check stats. So a statistician will check stats, and that's how they start to develop the reports. It's a whole lot of brain work, which I think would probably be relatively boring to a certain extent. But when you start to see the results, it's like putting together a puzzle. You take a 1,500 piece puzzle, you chuck it out, and it's this big mess. And then you start to sort it out and simplify it and cut out certain things and put certain bits and pieces into various different places until you get this complete picture. And that is essentially how research works. Now, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists suggests that taking a magnesium supplement could help to reduce bloating, mood symptoms, and breast tenderness in PMS. The other thing that it helps with is anxiety. And I know there's quite a few people who suffer from this anxiety. And anxiety is not stress, it's a completely different thing. Magnesium levels may play a role in mood disorders, including depression and anxiety. So depression is a thing and anxiety is a different thing. Depression can be rather longer term. Anxiety often, it's almost like a panic attack, would be another definition for anxiety. According to a systematic review from 2017, low magnesium levels may have links with higher levels of anxiety. Again, magnesium causes calming, relaxation. And this is partly due to the activity in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, HPA. It all happens up here in the brain, basically, brain and throat area. And this is a set of 3 glands that control a person's reaction to stress. Stress, we've been over before. I've done a complete series on that. So please go back and watch that. But stress can be somebody cutting you off in traffic and you have this shock reaction. But unfortunately, it's more common these days to have chronic stress where I'm not going to have enough money to live. I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to. And people stress about things continuously. Their job is very stressful. Think of a surgeon, specifically a neurosurgeon. One little slip, and he's changed somebody's life negatively forever. Very, very, very stressful. An aircraft pilot who's got hundreds of lives literally in his hands. Very, very stressful. Driving in peak hour traffic. Very stressful. However, the review points out that the quality of evidence is poor and that researchers need to do high quality studies to find out how well magnesium supplements might work for reducing anxiety. So if you want to do your own research and use yourself as a guinea pig, as long as you don't have any other underlying medical conditions and you've discussed it with your doctor and or your dietitian, go for it. So what is the magnitude of the problem? Intake of magnesium in food and dietary supplements. Continued low intake eventually depletes your body magnesium stores, and then your body functions become impaired. So these problems don't just happen. Think of your car. You put in petrol. Now you park your car in the garage and you don't turn it on for 2 months. Your fuel consumption is going to look pretty good. You're not going to have used any of that. But now you get in your car and you drive to Bloemfontein. You're going to use a lot more fuel. Therefore, you're going to fill it up more regularly than if you only drive your car 2 kilometers once every 3 months. You might only have to fill up your car once a year then. And exactly the same thing happens with things like magnesium or any nutrient for that matter. The more you use, the more activities you do, the more you use. And therefore, the quicker it gets emptied. So what are some of the signs of deficiency and overdose or toxicity? First of all, we'll start with deficiency. Although magnesium is naturally found in a variety of foods and some fortified foods, meaning that it's been added, some research suggests that magnesium levels may be lower in soils than in prior years, and food processing can reduce magnesium content from plant foods that contain the mineral, or should be containing the mineral. A low to moderate deficiency of magnesium is not likely to produce noticeable symptoms. The body also helps to preserve the magnesium levels when stores are low by limiting the amount excreted in urine and absorbing more magnesium in the gut. Again, I say we live in an amazing little machine. However, national dietary surveys show that most Americans, and you can include South Africans, of all ages eat less than the recommended amounts. And this is happening more and more and more. In our high-paced lifestyle, pardon me, junk food is obviously the go-to in a lot of cases. And junk food, as we know, is processed food. It is a food like some substance. There's not a lot of nutritional value in there. Further, a normal blood level of magnesium may not accurately predict the total magnesium levels in the body, as most of the mineral is stored in tissue and bones. So unless they're taking a sample of your tissues and the bones, you're probably not going to get that accurate total. Certain types of magnesium deficiency show a normal blood level. Severe deficiency occurs with a long-term low magnesium diet, malabsorption, or in other words, not absorbing correctly, and large losses from alcohol abuse or use of medications that deplete magnesium. And these include some diuretics, proton pump inhibitors, which are heart medication, and antibiotics, amongst other things. I've actually got a list of a lot more things that are depleted, or where magnesium is depleted by certain things. Now, signs of deficiency include things like fatigue or weakness. So that chronic fatigue, I just don't have any energy. Poor appetite. I know some people are not good eaters for numerous different reasons, and they just don't feel like eating. You've had surgery or you've been sick in general, you don't feel like eating. Nausea and vomiting is another symptom, but it's also a symptom of a few other things. Numbness or tingling in the skin, muscle cramps, seizures, that's really bad, abnormal heart rate are just some of the things. Now, all of these are symptoms that are common with numerous other disorders. So if in doubt, please go and see your doctor, let them test you. Let them check you out from head to toe. It might just be a simple thing that your magnesium levels are low, but it might be something else as well. So the risk factors of deficiency include things like alcohol abuse, so your chronic alcoholics. A long-term excessive intake of alcohol is associated with a poor diet, low in magnesium, digestive upset that leads to malabsorption, and problems with various organs that can flush out too much magnesium through urine. Older ages. The elderly have lower magnesium intakes according to national dietary surveys. Aging, because generally you don't eat that well either, or as much. Aging also causes decreased absorption of magnesium in the gut and increased excretion in urine. Furthermore, older adults are more likely to be on medications for chronic diseases that can further lower your magnesium stores. Some conditions with malabsorption. Diseases that interfere with digestion can lower the amount of magnesium absorbed. Most magnesium is absorbed in the largest segment of the small intestine, the ileum, which may be compromised in conditions like celiac and Crohn's disease. And surgery that removes the ileum, which is sometimes needed with colon cancer, ulcerative colitis, or Crohn's disease, further adds to a deficiency risk. Type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance or uncontrolled diabetes can cause the kidneys to make extra urine to rid the body of high levels of blood sugar, and this increased amount of urine may also flush out the magnesium. So if you are now overdosing, there are some symptoms as well. Now, toxicity is very rare from food sources because the kidneys will remove the excess magnesium in the urine. However, toxic levels may occur with long-term use of high-dosage supplements. People with kidney disease have a higher risk of toxicity because their kidneys are not working properly and cannot flush out extra magnesium. So they need to be very careful about how much magnesium they have. And remember, with a supplement, it is exactly that. It is in conjunction to a diet, a balanced diet. So in order to see what your levels are, be aware of what you're eating. And if you're not sure of how to calculate that, Google is a good place to go to. But if necessary, keep a food diary for a few days. In other words, every single thing that you eat or drink, don't worry about what it is, and then go and have a chat to your local dietitian who can access or assess that food diary, work out where the problems are, and guide you accordingly. So some of the signs of toxicity include things like nausea and vomiting. Again, too little or too much. Diarrhea, low mood or depression, muscle weakness, low blood pressure or an abnormal heartbeat, something really drastic like a heart attack. But where do we find magnesium in our food? It's found in plant foods like legumes, your dark green leafy vegetables, your nuts, your seeds, your whole grains, and your fortified cereals. And it's also found in things like fish, poultry, and beef. So your vegans are going to have a big problem with getting sufficient. It's also found in things like almonds, peanuts, cashews, pumpkin seeds, peanut butter, beans like black and kidney, soybeans and soy milk, cooked spinach or Swiss chard, white potato with the skin on, brown rice, oatmeal, both instant and whole oats, salmon, beef, poultry, banana, raisins, dark chocolate, in other words, pardon me, at least 70% cocoa, and milk and yogurt. So how does magnesium work with vitamin D? And the reason you may see magnesium included in a bone health vitamin is because the mineral plays an important role in converting vitamin D into its active form, which is why you have CalMag, calcium and magnesium and the vitamin D. Enzymes that produce and break down vitamin D require magnesium. The magnesium also helps the liver and kidneys to metabolize the vitamin D. Therefore, a deficiency of magnesium may reduce the body's ability to use vitamin D, even if vitamin D supplements are taken, which may in turn negatively affect the absorption of calcium. You can have 10 bottles of supplements, but if your body isn't able to absorb and process those things, absolutely useless. A high intake of vitamin D and calcium supplements in the setting of magnesium deficiency could potentially lead to high blood levels of calcium and phosphorus and calcification of blood vessels, conditions sometimes seen with chronic kidney disease and coronary artery disease. And this is why they say, oh yes, you need calcium, but be careful you don't take too much because it's going to lead to problems. If you don't have the magnesium, you're going to end up with problems. Research from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data shows that higher intakes of magnesium from food or supplements is associated with significantly reduced risks of vitamin D deficiency. Now, why our particular Neolife magnesium complex? First of all, the complex is a magnesium supplement containing bioavailable magnesium from 3 main sources. It's a unique thing called the Tri-Mag blend. And this is complemented by whole food phytonutrients in the Phyto-Mag blend. Neolife certainly do their research when it comes to putting together a usable supplement. So the Tri-Mag blend provides 150 milligrams of magnesium per 1 tablet serving from 3 different sources. And these are double amino acid chelated magnesium bound to glycine to provide a highly bioavailable and absorbable form of magnesium. Remember I said magnesium is a mineral which isn't generally easy to absorb anyway. Now the double amino acid mineral chelation was developed by Dr. Arthur First, who headed up our scientific advisory board. The trimagnesium citrate is an organically bound natural source of magnesium with high bioavailability. And the magnesium oxide has the highest concentration of magnesium and is easily absorbed. So you've got the easy, medium, and the longer term absorption. Now, the Neolife Phytomag blend is a proprietary blend, meaning specific to Neolife, of whole food beetroot, kale, broccoli, and radish. Foods that provide phytonutrient benefits such as antioxidant power and are natural sources of magnesium. So we have a complete food source, and this is why it took so long before magnesium came out, because they were looking for that specific combination of highly bioavailable magnesium. In other words, that your body can easily recognize and absorb and utilize. Because why? If you can't use it, if you can't absorb it, you can't utilize it, you're wasting your money. The magnesium complex is developed using our 3D technology to enhance bioavailability. And this technology assures rapid and complete disintegration, meaning breaking down of the tablet, dissolution, getting it into your system, and dispersion, getting it to all the organs that needs it. And it is a vegetarian or vegan formula. Why? Because, what did I say earlier? Some good sources of magnesium are animal foods, and vegans don't get that. So this is made entirely without any animal sourced ingredients of any kind. And the magnesium complex fulfills the strict sourcing criteria expected by vegetarian and vegan supplement users. And that is the end of my talk. Does anybody have any questions or comments before I stop the recording?